Okay, you're ready to go.
Okay, welcome everyone. I'd like to call to order the March 14th meeting of the High Point Regional High School Board of Education. I would ask everyone to please stand for the flag salute. I'm not sure if we're going to put up a flag or not, but we'll go through the flag salute anyway. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all.
So make sure we're fine.
Doesn't go as smoothly as in person. So the Open Public Meetings Act. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Augusta, Branchville, and Sussex post offices, and notice sent to the New Jersey Herald, the Sunday Herald, and the clerk of the boroughs of Branchville and Sussex, and the townships of Frankfort, Lafayette, and Wantage. Our mission statement. High Point Regional High School, in partnership with staff, family, and community, is dedicated to the quest for individual excellence. By fostering high standards of achievement, we prepare students to become responsible and productive members of a diverse society. Mr. Minkowitz, could I ask for a roll call, please? There's Jim. Jim, we're not hearing you if you're speaking. You're unmuted. I just think your microphone is not working.
I was having trouble with mine at first.
Jim, why don't you log off? Maybe that seems to sometimes do something. Log off and then log back in, although you don't have to. I don't want to hold anything up.
If I may, I'll go through and call roll until Jim gets back on, and then we can transfer that for record keeping sake.
That works.
Okay, Joe Conforth.
Here.
Joe Carrazza.
Here.
Jill Ireland.
Here.
Richard Klein.
Here.
Allison Orsi.
Here.
Tina Palasek.
Here.
Elizabeth Schumann.
Here.
El Tadona.
Here.
And myself, Wayne Dunn, is here. And we also have Dr. Scott Ripley
Here.
and Mr. Jim Minkowitz when he rejoins.
If he's unavailable to join with microphone, I'll offer to have him come into my office so we can do it together on this one.
Okay. We have on our agenda, posted agenda, that we were going to be moving into executive session. This agenda was prepared prior to our decision to move to a virtual meeting this evening. So we will not be holding our executive session as planned. Any items I believe we have here will be moved to the April meeting for executive session. So there's no need to entertain a motion to enter or leave executive session. Before we continue with the agenda, I just wanted to make a statement about the virtual meeting for the benefit of the public. Because our previous meeting in February had to be canceled due to a weather event, and the fact that that meeting was scheduled so late in February and then the March meeting scheduled so early in March, there was insufficient time to really reschedule the February meeting, and it didn't make sense because there was only two weeks between the meetings. So we opted not to reschedule the February meeting. Of course, not thinking that we would also potentially be in a situation with the March meeting and another weather event. So the decision to hold this meeting virtually was made because, for one, we need to have a meeting held to discuss the preliminary budget, first and foremost, and the fact that we didn't want to go attempting to reschedule this meeting out due to inavailability of some of our board members. So although the virtual platform is not preferable to the in-person meeting, we thought that it was the best option given the constraints. So that said, we'll move on with our agenda. We have no unfinished business. Next up was approval of minutes from the regular meeting minutes of January 24th, 2023, and executive session minutes of January 24th, 2023. Jim, did we get you back online?
He's going to dial in from a phone in his office.
Okay. I'll make the motion to approve those minutes. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion, any comments or corrections to those minutes? Okay. Out of interest of continuing while we're figuring out Mr. Minkwitz's audio problems, I'll go ahead and log this vote as well.
Jim is with me now.
Oh, okay.
We have a motion and a second for the minutes, so I can call roll call.
Yes, please.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Mr. Comforth.
Here.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Palisak,
Yes.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
Ms. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Orsi,
Yes.
Mr. Don.
Yes. Okay, minutes are approved. That brings us to our first public comments section of the evening. This section limited to agenda items only, please. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, we will open the public comments for agenda items only at this time. Each speaker should state his or her name and address. You will have 3 minutes to address the board, which will be timed by myself. We will limit this section to no longer than 45 minutes. Please be respectful and mindful that your comments are being recorded. So I'm told that if you're attending this meeting via the virtual platform, that there is a way to raise your hand and be identified to make your comments that way, or same as we have had in the past, the ability to email your comments to the email address that is posted on the link wherever you found the notice for the meeting on either our website or or some other platform. That same email address is active where you can submit your comments and we will read them. So I'm looking at our panelists and I see no attendees present at this point other than our panelists, those that are identified as panelists. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And have you seen any email come through at this point for public comments?
Not at this point.
Yardley? Nope. Well, this is not uncommon. We have a second public comment section later in the evening towards the end of our agenda. If anyone in the public would like to address the board, we'll open for public comments at that time as well. So with that, I'd like to have a motion to close public comments.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, Public comments are closed and we move to our presentations for the evening. First presentation we have up is Miss Lindsay Oriana, student representative, member of our board. Update us on the activities of the student council. Welcome, Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. So for this month, Student Council started off the month with another character initiative presentation, this one being trustworthiness. So like I said before, we had our monthly presentation to introduce this month's theme. And in this presentation, we discussed what it means to be trustworthy, how can you become more trustworthy, and who are trusted adults that you can turn to. That was mostly geared towards students. In relation to the trustworthiness theme, SAVE will be hosting their annual Say Something Week, in which we spread awareness about warning signs to both students and staff, and we allow students to let their trusted adults know why they find them to be trustworthy. During this week, we will be hosting several activities such as our classic Wear Green Day and our Trusted Adults Certificate activity. I had hoped to talk to you all about the teen arts trip, but obviously that has been postponed due to the weather. But students, including myself, are very excited to go on the annual trip and share their creativity with people from other schools. And that's pretty much it from this month.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone with questions for Ms. Oriana? Thanks for the updates. And as you know, you don't need to stay for the remainder of the evening unless you're so inclined.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not see that we have the HPA representative available for updates. Is that correct?
She emailed Mr. Minkowitz to inform him that she was having intermittent connection issues.
Okay. All right, with that then, we'll move on to the principal's report and athletics report by Mr. Jonathan Talame.
Good evening, everybody. Just going to keep it real quick and brief on the virtual aspect. The big thing I want to make sure Teen Arts, as Lindsay spoke about, is moved to tomorrow. So we're excited about that. That's a large gathering of the county and great to be at the community college. And that's going to be moved to tomorrow because of the delay today, the schedule today. Also, Something Rotten is coming up. For those that don't know, that's our musical. So don't be alarmed. That's our musical, and that starts on the 31st and runs through that weekend. Friday night is open tonight. Friday night, 7 o'clock. Saturday at 7 o'clock, and Sunday is a 2 o'clock show where we invite all of our senior citizens. And Mr. Carty offers all of our senior citizens in the community free tickets for the Sunday show. So we're excited about that. And athletically, we are trying to start spring sports. We had spring for like December, January, and February, and then now March comes and here we are. So spring sports actually, pitchers and catchers were this week, and tennis started on Monday, and then everybody else starts on the 15th and 16th coming up. So we'll have to work around the conditions, as they say, and looking forward to the spring season starting. Any questions on any of that? Okay, thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Now our next and last presentation is Mr. Seamus Campbell. I think you have a number of items, Mr. Campbell. So
I do, and because there are sometimes technological issues, and because I'm shorter when I'm pre-recorded, and they are all mandated that they be publicly presented. So we are required, all three on the agenda tonight must be presented. And so, Mr. Yardley, if you could take it away.
Good evening. Tonight, I'll be presenting on three topics. First off, our student safety data system, which we are required to publicly present on twice a year. Second, our safe return to school plan, which we are also required to update and present on as a result of the fact that we are a recipient of COVID-19 related grant funds known as ESSER funds. And I'll be updating the board and the community on those monies as well tonight. This is a pre-recorded message, but I will be available after the presentation along with Dr. Ripley, Mr. Minkowitz, Mr. Talame to entertain any questions about this presentation. So thank you for your attention. Okay. First, the SSDS. This covers incidents from July 1st through December 31st. And again, twice a year we report based upon the previous 6 months. So this is the first half of the school year. Investigations regarding violence, misconduct, harassment, etc., are conducted by Mr. Emma, Mr. Rice, Mrs. Sarnow, and Mr. Talamay. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Ms. Vicky Storr, who does a fantastic job in our main office of coordinating this data and accurately updating it in New Jersey Smart. The report includes violence, vandalism, weapons, substance abuse, and HIBs. You'll notice that we're showing you the total number of incidents for several years, but this report on the far right is specific to July 1st through December 31st, the time frame that had 22 reported incidents. Violence, there were 2 assaults and 6 fights. Substance abuse, 4 confirmed use, 2 possession, and 2 drug screen refusals. 2 incidents of vandalism and 1 weapons incident. Harassment, intimidation, and bullying. We present on this frequently, and I think everyone knows that we take this matter very, very seriously, and our investigations are exceedingly thorough and frequent. We investigated 27 incidents as possible HIBs just in the first 6 months of this year. 6 were confirmed to be HIBs, 14 were found to be code of conduct violations, and 7 were unfounded. We also make a note, and we publicly present here, for those 6 HIBs, what protected category was involved, as well as in those 6 HIBs, what discipline or other measures took place. Mr. Emma in January presented to our entire staff a training on our HIB procedures. And in October, during the Week of Respect, students learn about respect and about our HIB procedures and how to both report incidents of HIB and really how to try and create a student culture at our school that greatly reduces these occurrences. We're very proud of the thoroughness with which we attack this issue, and we're also proud of our transparency. We present this here publicly tonight. Safe return to school plan. 3 years ago this week, COVID-19 hit, and we have had to have numerous plans to document the thoroughness of which we're prepared to function through an emergency such as COVID-19. So all of our plans are available for the public to view on our website, and they are comprehensive, covering everything from food to instruction to sanitizing and summer learning, etc. Again, that's where you can find them all on our website. Every few months we update them as we are required to do so. And tonight, the most recent updated plan is on the agenda for board consideration. There's very little new to it because there's not much that has occurred in recent months, but we are required to update it regularly. ESSER funding. In March of 2020, we received the first installment of monies in response to the pandemic. And it's important to note that that money came at a time when High Point was experiencing a historic reduction in state funding. It's also important to note that unlike most grants, districts were given considerable flexibility in how they want to spend the money. Yes, it was earmarked in certain categories, but the regulations provided tremendous flexibility to use the money as we see fit. ESSER funds have and will impact 5 specific school years. We have the opportunity to spend this money up until the 2023-24 school year. $58,000 first came to us through CARES, then $298,000 in ESSER 2, and $1.1 million just about in ESSER 3. In total, High Point has received $1,456,232 through these grants. Here's the timeline. Our CARES money was received and quickly spent on emergent needs. ESSER 2, we have until this coming September to expend. And ESSER 3, we have until September of 2024 to spend that money. We are required to communicate with the community and to be transparent with our expenditures. At the start of the pandemic, we had numerous task forces and response teams with stakeholders from the community, and much of our spending was driven by the conversations that these response teams had with staff and community members. We've also communicated information thoroughly on our websites and at Board of Education meetings, at staff meetings, through surveys, and of course, the annual budget presentation shows and takes into account that we have this grant money available. Let's take a look at the money we've received and where it's been spent. CARES, when it first came in, was spent on retrofitting the cafeteria for point of service terminals so that we could be cashless. It was spent to provide Chromebooks to students that needed to be digitally connected for learning. And it was spent on cleaning supplies and related expenses that were central to the very start of the pandemic. ESSER 2, we've continued to allocate money towards Chromebooks. We've updated our weight room in the spirit of wellness, more IT improvements, professional development, food for Summer Academy, etc. We still have $155,321 available, approximately half of our ESSER 2 funds. In ESSER 3, we have nearly 1.1 million, all of it still remaining. I'd like to point out that the New Jersey Department of Education has a website where anyone can look at the total allocations and expenditures for every school district in New Jersey, and most will reflect the same thing that you see here, that a majority of the money remains still available. Okay, there we are in total, 1.45 received, 1.25 remaining. Again, we received this funding at a time where we were going through historic budget cuts that averaged more than $650,000 over the previous 4 years. We now know that for fiscal 24, our state funding has not been dramatically reduced. It's still been reduced, but and they haven't increased it to make up for unprecedented cuts. But we're not going to experience this degree of a dramatic cut. So now we have to decide how we want to respond to this most recent development. Some possible ways in which we'll utilize this money, particularly now that we know our state aid cuts have not been severe as we had feared. HVAC. Air quality has become a focal point in response to COVID-19, and many of our classrooms have air filtration systems that go back to 1965. Field trips. Enrichment opportunities were reduced due to the isolated nature of the pandemic. C, mental health services. We now have third-party licensed mental health clinicians providing services to our students on site, and a good portion of that is paid for by this grant. We're also looking into possible increases in staffing to provide comprehensive services to our students. Security, video surveillance, swipe cards. We want our building to be as safe and secure as absolutely possible, and some of those expenditures or resources need to be updated. Possibly more wellness programs, and possibly a way to offset other cuts or to be worked into our overall budget which our superintendent will speak to at length at our April meeting. So I know that's a lot of information. We continue to seek input. We welcome your comment, and we look forward to using this money to serve our students well. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Any questions from the board on any of those various presentations? I, for one, did not know, Mr. Campbell, that the state had a website up that was accessible by anyone where they could basically track
Yeah,
where money was.
they refer to it as their dashboard, and every district, it shows every dollar received with a bar chart of what percentage has been spent. And we're right in line with all 600 districts in the state. Most have been cautiously expending it and have, like we do, more than half left for the next 2 years.
Good.
Pastor
Anyone else?
Campbell, I have a question for you. You get that, Pastor Campbell? You got the church in the background? I noticed on the HIB that it's when it mentions parents notified, there was only 15 that were notified. Are parents not notified for some reason of all the incidents?
There's never a HIB where parents are not notified. Mr. Talaway is on the call along with Mr. Rice and Mr. Emma, and are exceedingly that communication is usually happens on numerous occasions. So parents are notified right out at the start that their child may be involved or is involved in an incident that's being investigated as a HIB, and then they're notified subsequently as to the determination.
It just seemed like the number was 15 and the number of HIBs was higher than that.
Well, actually, that was referring to the 6 confirmed HIBs.
Okay. The 15 is to the 6 confirmed ones.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Klein, yes, there's multiple communications even prior to it being confirmed or a code of conduct or unfounded between the assistant principal, Mr. Rice, Mrs. Sarna, or Mr. Emma. And then I make phone calls to all the parents at the end of the investigation and notify them at that point, our review that it's going to the superintendent, that's going to the board yet, to let them know where it is, and also notify them that they'll be getting a letter, regardless if it's a HIB, unfounded, or a code of conduct. And that letter won't be established until later on after the board meeting. So that way it lets them know that's coming sometimes 2 weeks or 3 weeks later. So there is multiple communications, and it gives them a chance to ask questions as well.
Right. Okay. So I had one other question, Seamus, regards to the ESSER funds. You said that a lot of that money hasn't been spent. 1.2 million hasn't been spent, and you said there's hesitancy across other schools as well of spending. Is there a reason why schools are hesitant to spend the money? Are they concerned that the state is going to maybe ask for it back?
Well, I will say that I looked at every district in the county primarily, and most of the districts in the county, as you know, have also experienced significant budget cuts. So my thinking is that, like us, they're cautious, trying to stretch that money out over the 5 years, unaware of what those budget cuts will be. So, for example, as Dr. Ripley will tell us tonight and next week when he goes over it, we, based on the past, we're bracing for anywhere from $500 to $1 million in reduction. So we felt it was wise to be patient as we spent it. It's also, important to note out that we have a Title I grant that we receive every year. Many of the acute needs for students that are at risk, such as mental health services, are also being paid by that federal grant that expires June 30th. So we received $71,000 last year in that grant. And much of that is going towards wellness and mental health services. But the timeline on that is, that expires June 30, where the other grants don't expire until really technically the 24-25 school year. So, and I believe, Mr. Klein, if I had to guess, that most districts are proceeding similarly. There's also some, Mr. Minkowitz knows the folks in a Morris County district that received somewhere around $10 million, maybe even more. And so some districts were overwhelmed with, some districts experienced state aid increases and simultaneously massive allocations of ESSER funds. And that's difficult to spend. So it's called the dashboard. I can share it with the board. It's pretty easy to find. It is interesting to see. Almost every district is in a similar position as far as spending.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the reasons I'm bringing it up, I'm not sure if there's public on listening or not, but it's important for the public to understand what the ESSER funds are for, and that they're basically earmarked. There are guidelines of where that money can be used. It's not just general fund money. So it's important that we have that out. I'm not sure if there's, like I said, if there's public listening or not, but it's important that they know that there's a list of things that it can be used for, correct?
Yes, and when we applied to receive it, we had to specify a somewhat specific plan. But you also always have the opportunity to request permission to amend your plan. But it absolutely is. It's spearheaded for mental health. It's spearheaded for summer and after school learning acceleration, et cetera. It is not a block grant to be used as you like. It's got it's earmarked for certain areas, and you must craft your grant application specific and have it approved for those purposes. The one area, it's kind of technical, but the one area where there's a bit more flexibility is most grants say that you may not use the funding for any expenditure that you normally spend money on. They removed that restriction from this grant. So in that sense, the specific areas are prescribed, but unlike other grants, we have the flexibility of applying this grant money towards expenditures that we might normally pay for through the general fund, if I'm being clear.
Yeah. So you can't, to be like in layman's terms, you can't pave the parking lot with it. When we're talking about using money for HVAC, that's health related. So
correct.
So I'm just mentioning this. So it's because that ESSER acronym is thrown around a lot. People think that is just free money for anything.
It would be difficult to write the grant for that. Correct. But many schools have seized on HVAC, et cetera, as a health and wellness component.
Right.
Just to wrap that up, based upon our meetings and the feedback that we've received, and the significant amount of planning that goes into expenditures of this nature, right? So when we talk about schools getting $10 million a year, they don't know how to spend that. It's really actually profligate and irresponsible, in my opinion. And even though that could get me in trouble with the state, it is an irresponsible allocation or redistribution of wealth, where you're taking $10 million and just backing up the Brinks truck to a district. They don't have a strategic plan to spend that money so as to ensure that it impacts positively students and the community. So it ends up getting spent in a less than efficient manner. And so the manner in which we have processed this over the last several years is that we wanted to make sure that every dollar was processed efficiently and effectively so as to have an impact on wellness, student wellness, staff wellness, and HVAC units have play a significant role in that. So we have a plan moving forward that every dollar of the outstanding funds that you saw will be fully allocated and expended within the time frame, which would be by next September. So I believe that rather than, I know people look at the website and say, well, how come you haven't spent that money? In reality, it is, perhaps it's counterintuitive. People think, oh, you're not spending this money. What's the problem? No, what it is a demonstration of effective and efficient planning where each dollar is allocated properly rather than spending it on, widgets, using an economic term that wouldn't be applicable to directly to students. So.
Thank you. And maybe another comment, I'm sure we'll get in some deeper discussion when it comes to the budget. But the way school finances work is we don't just get to carry over from one year to another if there's a surplus, right? There are very tight regulations with regard to how budgets have to be planned and adhered to, and the amount that can be put away for future years. So just because, if we get that, the third ESSER fund, which seems to be the largest one, we can't just spread that out over the next 5 years. I think that's correct, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. September 30th, 2024 is the deadline. So we essentially have next school year. We have 2 school years essentially, which is a lot of months for what looks like a lot, but if you take into account the overall budget, it's sizable, it's helpful, and it will be easily spent for good purpose.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to our action items for the evening. Going once, going twice. Thanks again.
Okay.
So first up for action items, curriculum, instruction, and technology. May I turn that over to you, Ms. Schumann?
You may. So items 1 through 3 are just bringing attention to the faculty and student attendance for January and February, and then the suspension report for January and February. Our first action item is to approve the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report for January 24th, 2023 through March 14th, 2023. So I'd like to, making a motion and seeking a second on that.
Second.
Okay, and then any discussion on that? Okay, roll call for that one, please.
Mr. Comforth,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Palisak,
Yes.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
Ms. Schumann,
Yes.
Ms. Orsi,
Yes.
Mr. Dona,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes.
Okay,
Pearson.
everybody voted on that, Jill, too?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to move, item, I'm sorry, was there discussion? No, okay. I'd like to move action items 5 through 9 together. 5 is the approval of the curricular field trips and co-curricular field trips as attached. Item 6 is professional development activities. Item 7 is the revised 2022-2023 school calendar. Item 8 is the 2024-25 school calendar. And item 9 is the extended school year from July 5th through August 1st, 2023. Making a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Palisak,
Yes.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
Ms. Schumann,
Yes.
Ms. Orsi,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Mr. Comforth,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes.
Okay, and then finally, I'd like to move action items 10 through 13 together. 10 is the recommendation that the Board of Ed approves the Uniform State Memorandum of Agreement between education and law enforcement officials for 2022-2023, which was reviewed and approved with no changes by the county superintendent. Item 11 is recommended that we approve the updated 2022-23 Safe Return to School and Emergency Remote Instruction Plan. Item 12 is the Volunteer Compliance Plan for the Career Technology Education Methods of Instruction Compliance Review. And number 13 is recommended that we accept the $6,600 through the New Jersey Climate Change Awareness Education Grants. That's focused on supporting the implementation of New Jersey student learning standards addressing climate change. Making a motion and seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Palczak,
Yes.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
Ms. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Orsi,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Mr. Comforth,
No.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes. That is it for curriculum instruction and technology. So next up, personnel action items, Ms. Tadona.
Okay, I'd like to move action items number 1 and 2. Number 1 is the recommendation to accept with regret the retirement notification of Kevin Fenlon, teacher of technology education, effective July 1st, 2023. And number 2 is the recommendation to accept with regret the retirement notification of Eileen Fenlon, media specialist, special education teacher, effective July 1st, 2023. Making a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion? You're breaking up.
Scott, you're glitching a little bit. The video and audio feed both.
Just wanted to say that these two individuals have been around for quite some time. Anyone who's been in the community has heard the names of these two individuals who have impacted High Point community and education in a profound, lasting, and meaningful way. They've both had very distinguished careers this community would be a lesser place had it not been for the presence of each Kevin and Eileen Fenlon over the last 4+ century. So I wish them nothing but the best and say congratulations. And they are not irreplaceable individuals. And so we wish them nothing but the best.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Tano, I'm actually glad that you moved both items together, so I didn't have to make comments about them separately and pick one first. I've known both Mr. and Mrs. Fenlon for quite some time. Kevin, from his involvement in youth sports, specifically youth soccer, for a number of years. He's coached my daughters. We have children the same age. I've been fortunate enough to bring some technology from my own place of employment in to present to his students in the past, and have seen him at work, something that a board member wouldn't normally have access to, and count him again among my friends. And I wish him nothing but the best. And certainly, the same for Mimi. She has put the same number of years in at High Point and possibly affected a slightly different group of students, but affected them with the same strength nonetheless. She has transformed our media room to a place where students wish to go. Unfortunately, with COVID and the shutdown, that certainly changed the landscape of our media room. But I certainly wish them nothing but the best in their future endeavors, and I'm sure we'll see them around somewhere.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, in that case, roll call, please. You're muted.
Sorry, didn't want any feedback.
Mr. Klein,
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Horsey,
Yes.
Mr. Donna,
Yes.
Mr. Comforth,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Palsek,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes.
Okay, then I'd like to move items 3 through 6. 3 is the recommendation of approval for the increase in hours for a bus driver as listed. 4 is the approval of substitutes for the remainder of the 2022-2023 school year, pending receipt of required paperwork effective March 2nd as listed. Number 5 is a recommendation to approve a salary adjustment for a paraprofessional aide as listed. And number 6 is the recommendation to approve the extended sick FMLA leave of absence for employee 473 through the end of the 2022-23 school year as per doctor's note. Making a motion seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Horsey,
Yes.
Mr. Donna,
Yes.
Mr. Comfort,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Palsek,
Yes.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes. Mr. Caraza, would you like me to handle this? I think you mentioned you have some difficulty pulling up the agenda.
Yes, please. I apologize. I'm having some computer. I can't pull the agenda up to read it.
So under extracurricular, I would like to move items 1 through 5. Item 1 is recommendation to approve the following extracurricular appointments for the 2022-2023 school year as listed. Item 2 is a recommendation to approve Natalie Smetana as the unified track coach for 2022-2023 school year. Item 3 is a recommendation to approve Ernest Conklin and William Aaron Rasmussen as volunteers for the baseball team. Item 4 is a recommendation to approve Tom Mitchell as a volunteer baseball coach and Dave Noonan as a volunteer track coach. And item 5 is a recommendation to approve John Talame as a volunteer baseball coach to assist the team while in Florida. So I'll make the motion for items 1 through 5. May I have a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions, discussion on those items? I'd just like to thank all of the volunteers who are coming out to support High Point Athletics.
I'll add to that because there are some volunteers there that I coached with as well in the past. There's a lot of good people.
A roll call, please.
Ms. Horsey,
Yes.
Mr. Donna,
Yes.
Mr. Comforth,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Palsek,
Yes.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
Ms. Schuman,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes. I'm going to go back to you, Mrs. Tadona for policy items. Items.
Yeah, well, there's two. There are two. I'm going to move items 1 and 2 together. Item 1 is the recommendation to approve the second reading of the following new regulation, Regulation 2425 about emergency virtual and or remote instruction program. And then I'd like to move item 2, which is a recommendation to approve the following revised policies and regulations. Policy number 5512, which is a HIB policy. Policy 8140, which is a student enrollments. Policy 8330, student records. And Regulation 8140, enrollment accounting. Regulation 8330, student records. Regulation 8420.2, which is bomb threats, and Regulation 8420.7, which is lockdown procedures, Regulation 8420.1, which is active shooter, and then Policy 8550, unpaid meal charges, outstanding food service changes. Making a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
So there was some discussion going on from the policy committee regarding policy 5512, which is extremely lengthy and very arguably convoluted, but there are times when some documents that are 27 pages can be somewhat convoluted. And so we went back and forth with lengthy conversations, and so there was some discussion as to what to do with policy 5512. The options are as such: to leave it on as was just moved, and if the committee wishes to revise it, we can certainly revise it again next month. To give you some context, this was last revised last summer at our July meeting. The state updated the statute, and then this was issued in December, and therefore is up for consideration now. So we frequently revise documents, particularly those that are revised by the state so often. Or you could vote to remove that now for further consideration, to remove it from the agenda, or to table it. I will give you context to the rest of you that I reached out to the gentleman who actually wrote the policy, and he wants to meet with the committee to explain and answer any of the questions that they might have, which is a tremendous asset for us to be able to reach out to the actual person who wrote it, with whom I have a professional relationship, and he very much would like to be able to answer any of the board's questions. So that's the context of the conversation that we had for your consideration.
So I'd like to add a little to that discussion. There were about 5 distinct amendments that the state made in 2022. And I found that 2 or maybe 3 of them were not updated for our policy. And I think some of them are pretty important. A few were added in, but there's still one that I found yesterday that is not added in that really needs to be there. So these are state mandated edits, they're statutes for the policy. So and I was kind of waffling back and forth about what to do, if we should recommend approving this and then revising next month. But I kind of almost feel like the edits are they shouldn't take too long. And perhaps we should just do the edits. And I don't know if that means like tabling it and getting the edits done now and then approving it next month. Seems to make more sense to me.
So your indication, Ms. Orsi, is that the HIB policy as it is written, even though we have it here, we know which ones are mandated by the state, which ones are recommended. We typically do that in our agenda. your indication is that it doesn't actually encompass all of the mandates that it should. And
Correct.
okay. Is there any danger in us not approving this in this month's meeting?
No, there's no danger. We do have to, it is mandated, and I do have to send an export extract to the county office affirming that the board did indeed approve it, but there's no specific time frame for which that needs to be done. So you can certainly table it, you can remove it, you can vote on it, but if you do decide to either table it or to remove it, you would have to have a motion to do so.
Yeah. Anyone else from the policy committee want to share their thoughts on it, just for the benefit of the rest of the board?
I looked over some of it briefly. I don't, I'm not completely familiar with all of it. I feel like some of it's really just little small details, but you know, she said just recently there was one thing that she thought wasn't included that maybe should be. So I don't know. I see them more as like little edits and whatnot. So I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I'd almost like to see it get approved and then see if we can revise it or something like that after we speak with the.
Yeah, I look. There are a couple of ways of going about it. I mean, if what we have now as a policy does not put us in a dangerous or litigious position, and there's no harm in waiting another month. I don't know if there's
the manner in which the policy and the legislation is executed will not change either way.
Okay.
Right. I mean, one of them is about the state is mandating if you have a preliminary determination that's allowed in your policy, then it needs to be reported to the board. And that second piece is not in our policy. Well, the first piece is, so it's like an if then. So, you know, it's not, I don't think that puts us in a dangerous position, but we're not compliant with the state mandates right now.
I think that it would behoove the board and the committee to hear from the gentleman who wrote the policy. And I'm not looking in any way to contend. I do think it is wise to proceed with a meeting, but I think it is, with all due respect, and I understand what you're saying, Ms. Orsi, to state that it's not non-compliant. I'm not sure that that's actually definitively the case, although I'm not looking in any way to argue over it, because I do know that these things can be convoluted and confusing. And I think that that will be hopefully more clearly explained when we do hear from the company that wrote the policy.
So the way that we would have to handle this, so we have a motion on the floor in a second, I believe, for the two items as listed, as given. We would need a motion to amend the second item to remove policy 5512 from item number 2. And that motion then would have to be seconded and voted in favor of in order for us to proceed with voting on the remainder of them. The other option is just to proceed with voting on them as they are, and risk, you know, potentially voting down the second item.
And each member just exclude that one line?
I
Excluding
don't,
him?
not technically, no. I mean, to be in compliance with Robert's rules, I think we don't have like a line item veto, if that's what.
Okay.
You know,
But while I have your ear for a minute, I just want to make a correction on that. On the rest of them, the active shooter was 8420.10, not 1.
Yes.
Sorry. Yes.
Okay. I just looked at the sequence of numbers there and realized that it was 10. So
I just read correctly. It is actually written correctly in the agenda. So, so Ms. Orsi, I guess I would put that in your court then. If you would like to make a recommendation to modify and or refer back to the Personnel and Policy Committee, that item, policy 5512, you should probably do that at this point.
Okay, so I can make a motion to to move policy 5512 back to the committee.
Yes. So yeah, just so the motion is we are going to amend item number 2. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but just so we have this straight. You're going to amend item 2 to refer policy 5512 back to committee for further discussion.
Yes, I would like to amend policy 5512 back to the committee for further revision. Was that right?
We have a motion to amend on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
And
Okay.
so as far as discussion, let me just clarify my previous statements. I support the sending it back to the committee as discussed by Ms. Orsi for further discourse, so that she and anyone else who may have some reservations are able to be more fully comfortable with that which is written. So I support that, Ms. Orsi.
If no other discussion, we can have a roll call on the motion to amend item 2 in policy, which is to refer policy 5512 back to Personnel and Policy Committee for further discussion.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Mr. Comforth,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Palasek,
Yes.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
Ms. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Orsi,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes. Okay. So that was voted in the affirmative. So we have now. Sorry to take over, Mrs. Tadona. So we have.
Please do. Go for it.
Item 1 and item 2 as it is amended with the removal of policy 5512, but all other policies and regulations intact as listed. We have a motion, and actually, perhaps you should make a motion for number 2 as it's revised so that we can have a second. And
Okay. All right. So moving item number 1 and moving item number 2 with the deletion or the omission of the policy 5512 or the amendment of the 5512 HIB policy to go back to the committee. So we're amending that one. Making a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Any other further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Comforth,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Palasek,
Yes.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
Ms. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Orsi,
Yes.
Mr. Dona,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
yes. Thank you.
Thank you,
all
Mr.
for-
Dunn. You're much better with that stuff than I am.
Well, thank you all for your patience in navigating that on the virtual platform. Makes it even that much more challenging.
Yeah.
So we got through that. We have no negotiation items and we have no buildings and grounds action items. I suspect the Buildings and Grounds Committee is likely going to become busier in the coming months as we consider some of those much needed capital improvements that we have on our long range facilities plan that we possibly have sources of funding for now. So although there's no action items, like we always say, there's a lot happening. So Nobody else has any comments on buildings and grounds. I'll move on to finance. Okay. In finance, Mr. Mankiewicz, you could just confirm the first item that we have struck, the February 2023 report.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so it's only the January. Okay. And
Yes.
that is the same for item two.
Yes,
three.
the account reconciliations, they are completed as of yesterday, but we didn't get the final copy signed, and Ms. Heller was not here the past couple days, so we thought it best to save them till the next meeting.
Okay, very good. So I would like to move items 1 through 5 in finance. Item 1 is a recommendation to accept the report of the board secretary, business administrator for the month of January 2023. Item 2 is a recommendation to accept the report of the treasurer for the month of January 2023. Item 3 is a recommendation to approve the report of transfers and minimum expense transfer report for the month of January 2023. Item 4 is recommendation to approve for payment the attached schedule of audited bills dated February 28th, 2023 and March 14th, 2023. And item 5 is a recommendation to accept the adult education agency account, athletic account, principal's petty cash account, school scholarship account, school store, and student activities reconciliations for the month of January 2023. I make that motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call on those items.
Mr. Comforth,
Yes.
Mr. Krause,
Yes.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Palsek,
Yes.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
Ms. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Orsi,
Yes.
Mr. Dona,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes. I'd like to move items 6 through 9 in finance. Item 6 is a recommendation to approve vendor payments for the spring musical to the individuals as listed. Payment will be made through the spring musical student activities account. So there is no cost to the district. Item 7 is a recommendation that the board acknowledges and gratefully accepts the 2023 New Jersey STEM Month mini grant in the amount of $500 from the Overdeck Family Foundation. And item 8 is a recommendation that the board approves a memorandum of understanding with the ARC of New Jersey and Project Hire to provide students with opportunities to assess and or develop the skills necessary to work and live in the community independently. And item 9 is a recommendation that the board approves donating a high jump mat and standard that is no longer used to Sussex Middle School. I'll make that motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? I hope that Sussex Middle School puts that high jump mat and standard to good use, because I remember using one there many, many years ago that probably looked as old as it was. If nothing else, I'll take a roll call.
Mr. Krause,
Yes.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Palsek,
Yes.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
Ms. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Orsi,
Yes.
Mr. Dona,
Yes.
Mr. Comforth,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes. Okay, item 10 is a resolution for our tentative school budget. And I will read this one just about in its entirety. Item 10, be it resolved that the board approves the adoption of the tentative school budget for the 2023-2024 school year as follows. First, travel and related expense reimbursement. Whereas the High Point Regional High School Board of Education recognizes school staff and board members will incur travel expenses related to and within the scope of their current responsibilities, and for travel that promotes the delivery of instruction or furthers the efficient operation of the school district. And whereas NJAC as listed requires board members to receive approval of these expenses by a majority of the full voting membership of the board, and staff members to receive prior approval of these expenses by the superintendent of schools and a majority of the full voting membership of the board. And whereas the High Point Regional High School Board of Education may establish for regular district business travel only an annual school year threshold of $1,500 per staff member where prior board approval shall not be required unless this annual threshold for a staff member is exceeded in a given school year. And whereas travel and related expenses not in compliance with NJAC as listed, but deemed by the High Point Regional High School Board of Education to be necessary and unavoidable as noted on the approved High Point Regional High School Board of Education out of district travel and reimbursement forms. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the High Point Regional High School Board of Education approves all travel not in compliance with NJAC as listed as being necessary and unavoidable as noted on the approved High Point Regional High School Board of Education out of district travel and reimbursement forms. And be it further resolved, the High Point Regional High School Board of Education approves travel and related expense reimbursements in accordance with NJAC as listed to a maximum expenditure of $75,000 for all staff and board members. Second part of this resolution, adoption of the budget for 2023 to 2024. Be it resolved that the budget be approved for the 2023-2024 school year using the 2023-2024 state aid figures, and the secretary to the High Point Regional High School Board of Education be authorized to submit the following budget to the Executive County Superintendent of Schools. And in the table, we have total expenditures, general fund, $23,412,798, with special revenue of $707,267. No debt service, $0 in debt service for a total expenditure of $24,120,065. Less anticipated revenues under general fund, $5,868,628. Special revenue, the same full amount of $707,267. Again, no debt service. So the total less anticipated revenues of $6,575,895 yields the taxes to be raised for general fund, $17,544,170. And that is also the total, $17,544,170. So be it resolved that the High Point Regional High School Board of Education approves a levy of general fund taxes for the 2023-2024 school budget to be $17,544,170. This budget addresses health and safety issues related to facility, capital spending, student-centered items, and program integrity. And to authorize said tentative budget in the New Jersey Herald in accordance with the form suggested by the State Department of Education and according to law. So I make that motion, item 10. May I have a second?
Second.
I will open for discussion on item 10, the tentative school budget for 2023-2024. Anyone? Scott or Jim, anything you want to mention before I have a couple of items I just wanted to run over?
I'm not sure, you're probably going to mention it, Wayne, but it's noteworthy that the tax increase is 1.75%. We didn't go to the maximum 2%. We're trying to give a little break, and with the adjustment in state aid that we were not anticipating, that helped us a little bit.
It's also the general fund tax, not the tax levy, because we know that that's unfortunately been highly impacted by the state aid reductions. But our overall spending has dropped by $1.9 million in the last decade. Now, you could say that, okay, we've lost several hundred students, absolutely understandable. But the fact that we have generally educational budgets do not drop to that degree. So we have cut spending, overall spending, by $1.9 million in the last decade, which is, I think, noteworthy for the board. And that's inclusive of what we did in the fiscal 21 budget.
Yes, Jim, you were exactly right. That was one of the items I wanted to cover. So the Finance Committee, when we were reviewing this, so obviously, the Finance Committee and the administration did not anticipate that we were going to see state aid figures exactly like we did. We expected continued serious cuts. Now, I have to emphasize, we are still being cut again. We are continuing to lose money from state aid. We just did not lose in this calendar or in this fiscal year the amount that we anticipated. I call it fortunate. We have no idea why that was exactly. The formula from which those numbers are calculated is not public, or if it was somehow made public via an Oprah request, it is undecipherable how it's done. So we don't know as an organization how that happened. But yes, I guess it can be considered fortunate. What the Budget Committee felt was it was necessary not to continue utilizing the full 2% budget tax levy increase that we are entitled to by state statute, that we felt that we should try to give something back to the taxpayers. Now, you might argue that 0.25% is not all that much, but when you consider that 1.75% is the proposed increase of the tax levy from the previous year, compare that to what you're feeling in prices of just about anything else. The inflation rate is certainly a lot higher than 1.75%. So again, in a year where we felt that the state aid was going to be worse, and it was not, it was the Finance Committee in support with the administration that we wanted to at least back off on that maximum amount. This budget also allows us to set aside in our capital fund some money that will go towards also the renovations that we talked about earlier with the HVAC. I believe, even if we are successful in getting one of the grants that we are applying for, is not 100% grant. We still, the board still has to fund a portion of that. And so it is exciting to me that we are able to replenish our capital fund to some extent, whereas in the past, because of the state aid cuts primarily, it was decimated. So that is another item of the current tentative budget that I just wanted to emphasize. But I think that covers the main points. I don't want to belabor it too much. If there's anybody else that has any comments or thoughts or questions, feel free. Okay. If there are no other comments or discussion, may I have a roll call on our tentative budget resolution?
Mr. Carrazza,
Yes.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Palsek,
She's muted.
Ms. Palsek,
Hear from all-
you're muted.
Sorry, yes.
All right, thank you. Mr. Khan,
Yes.
Ms. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Orsi,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Mr. Comforth,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes. Okay. I will move the remaining item in finance. Item 11 is a recommendation that the board approves the 2022-2023 contract for educational services provided to the Department of Children and Families for providing additional and compensatory special education related services to students with disabilities beyond age 25. I'll make that motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. Beyond age 21, Wayne, you said 25.
Did I say 25? Sorry, age 21, yes.
Beyond age 21, and I just want to note that we submitted an application for the cost reimbursement for that. We get 50% back from the state for those educating those students, and we received payment of $90,000 last month for that.
Wow.
So you know, that's something. So thanks.
If no other comments, roll call, please.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Pausek,
Yes.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
Ms. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Orsi,
Yeah.
Mr. Dona,
Yes.
Mr. Comfort,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes. I'm going to handle transportation for Mr. Caraza because he's unable to pull up his agenda. And in fashion, after Mr. Caraza, I'd like to move items 1 through 17 as a block. One is a recommendation to the board approves and authorizes execution of the following quoted contracts for AM route coverage for 10 days for the 2022-2023 school year. 2 is a recommendation to approve and authorize execution of the following quoted contracts for activity trips for 2022-23. Item 3 is a recommendation to approve and authorize following parental contract with parents of student ID as listed. Item 4 is a recommendation to approve and authorize the execution of quoted contracts for curricular trips for 2022-23. Item 5 is a recommendation to approve the execution of the following joint transportation agreement for 2022-2023. Item 6 is a recommendation also to approve joint transportation agreement for 2022-2023 as listed. And so is 7. 7 is approve and authorize execution of a joint transportation agreement for transportation 2022-2023 as listed. 8 is a recommendation to approve a joint transportation agreement between High Point Regional High School and Walk Hill Valley Regional High School for anticipated transportation services during 2022-2023 school year with a 5% administration fee. Item 9 is a recommendation to approve a transportation agreement between High Point Regional High School and Lafayette Township Elementary School for transportation services during 2023-24. Have I been saying 22 and 23? I'll correct them as I need. With a 5% administration fee. Item 10 is a recommendation to approve a joint transportation agreement between High Point Regional High School and Sussex Wantage Regional High School for 2023-24 school year with a 5% administration fee. Item 11 is a recommendation to approve a joint transportation agreement between High Point Regional High School and Frankford Township Elementary School for 2023-24 school year with a 5% administration fee. Item 12 is a recommendation to approve a joint transportation agreement between Sussex County Regional Transportation Co-op and High Point Regional High School for 2023-2024 with a 4% administration fee. Item 13 is a recommendation to approve a joint transportation agreement between Sussex County Regional Transportation Co-op and High Point Regional High School for transportation to public school, private school, charter, choice, vocational, technical, and other schools for 2023-2024 with a 2% administration fee. Item 14 is a recommendation to approve a joint transportation agreement between Sussex County Transportation Co-op and High Point Regional High School for anticipated athletic and field trips for 2023-2024 with a 4% administration fee. Item 15 is a recommendation the board approves the following student transportation contract transfer agreements for the remaining 22-23 school year. As listed, what was that, 15? Item 16 is a recommendation to approve and authorize the execution of the following quoted contracts for athletic trips for 2022-2023 school year. And finally, item 17 is a recommendation to approve and authorize the execution of the following quoted contracts for activity and curriculum trips for 2022-2023 school year as listed. I'll make that motion for items 1 through 17. Any, may I have a second?
Second.
Any comments, discussion? I have a roll call.
Ms. Palsek,
Yes.
Mr. Klein,
Yes.
Ms. Schuman,
Yes.
Dorsey,
Yes.
Ms. Tadona,
Yes.
Mr. Conforth,
Yes.
Mr. Caraza,
Yes.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes. I think that concludes our action items. We have no long-term planning or legal items. I don't believe we had any correspondence we had listed. Under miscellaneous state school board mandated training. Jim, do you have an update? I know the governance one was not available as of our last meeting, but I believe they had plans for the online governance one training to be back online sometime soon.
I signed up Ms. Palsek, and I will reach out to the other couple members and ask them if that's what they wish me to do.
Okay, Ms. Palasek, that'll be a review, I'm sure, for you.
Yep, I didn't have to go in person. They gave me an out on that since I'm a second timer.
In relation to training, just as a side note, Ms. Hellowa, who has done such a phenomenal job training the High Point board for so many years, has resigned her position with the New Jersey School Boards Association. She'll be missed.
She will certainly be missed by High Point and all the other schools in Sussex County. And
Absolutely.
I tried to reach out to her and I haven't heard back yet. I wanted to wish her well. But I'm sure we'll find out who our new field service representative is soon enough. And
I will communicate the board's sentiments. I will see her on Friday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, please do. Thank you.
Yeah, she made it fun.
Yeah.
So with that, we have our second public comments section of the evening. I do not see any attendees.
Mr. Dunn, I had asked Mr. Yardley to project something from my related to my previous presentation.
Sure, certainly.
Just wanted to put that up there very quickly. If anyone in the community wanted to look at the dashboard that we discussed earlier tonight, you can see the website there, and it's a pretty easy to maneuver portal where you can look at each district in the state. I just wanted to share that since we referenced it earlier.
I wasn't even aware this was on the Department of Education site.
It's hidden in there, but it's, like I said, it's easy to use, and it's if you're curious about any school district that you want to compare, you can easily do that. So click and play. And Dan, thanks for projecting that.
Thanks for being.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. So yes, with the second public comment section, the same rules apply as prior. Like I said, I don't see any attendees in our virtual presentation, but if you have any comments that have been submitted via email to the email address that is displayed on any of our links on our website or elsewhere.
No, nothing has come through.
Okay. Well, there's always next month. May I have a motion to close public comments?
Motion.
In a second?
Second.
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 All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed? Okay, no more public comments. Any non-committee board member reports or comments at this time? Doesn't sound like any. Just one item then under our other business, which is our intent to post any open public records act requests that come into the board office. They are as listed. So with that, may I have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
Motion.
In a second?
Second.
Second.
All in
Third,
favor?
fourth, fifth.
Aye.
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 And none opposed, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you all for your patience and willingness to hold our meeting virtually. And let's hope that we don't have to do this for snow reasons any further this year.